Today we discuss TCP, continuing the discussion on TCP, and yes, you can hear me as well as see the slides. Yes, yes, no, someone please.
Yes.
Yeah, right. Okay.
Yes,
So
sir.
we saw that say TCP involves handshake signals. Say it's a connection-oriented protocol. There is a three-way handshake or three-step handshake, whatever you call it. First, you send a synchronization packet segment. Then, in response, the server responds with the sync acknowledgement segment, and finally the client will acknowledge, and that's how the connection is established. We saw about the sequence numbers also. We saw how these sequence numbers are selected. So the process starts in this end. We'll just recall the things. Say the server side and the client side. There are two processes running in the application layer. So the client side requires some service from the server side process, application layer process. Now the server process will be running with fixed port numbers because it's a well-known port numbers. That's what. And the client side will be taking ephemeral port number, ephemeral or temporary port numbers. That's the thing. So the idea here is that so the server side process will be in a passive on state. So it will just send a request to the TCP layer. It's TCP layer telling that it's a passive on request. So but it can't make a connection just like that on its own. It has to evolve from this side, the client side. So client side, when it application program, when it wants to make a connection, TCP connection with the server side process, it sends active open request to its TCP layer, and then what happens, the TCP layer sends a SYN segment. It doesn't contain any data. It doesn't contain any data, but it will contain a sequence number, and the sync flag will be set. So we'll just discuss about the sync flag. That's why S is shown here. The control bits in the TCP header. That's what. So and the sequence number is randomly selected from. So that is, and then this is going to the server, and the server TCP layer accepts it, and then it it sends back an acknowledgement. So sync plus acknowledgement, and the acknowledgement is cumulative, just indicating that I expect a next segment with a sequence number 8001. That's why it's given as 8001. ACK is given as 8001, and this server side process will also choose a random sequence number. It will also choose a random sequence number for its segment. Now once this is received here, the connection is opened on this side. The client side, the connection is opened by the TCP layer to the client process, and there are port numbers, specific port numbers for this connection, right? It will be a temporary port number usually. Then again the client will respond with an acknowledgement to the server. So telling, and the sequence numbers you note, that is 8001, that is the next sequence with a frame which is expects. So it does this also will not contain any data. This also will not contain any data. Rather, this may contain some data. So if it contains data, means it will have the next segment will be numbered with the sequence number plus data, whatever comes the next. So that is, if it is having 100 bytes, so 8000 101 plus 100, that will be the next sequence number, right? So again, receive window and receive window, this specifies the flow control mechanism. So server is specifying a receive window size of 5000, whereas the client is specifying a receive window size of 10,000. We already discussed when we discussed buffers, and we mentioned that these buffers are mechanisms. These buffers are there on this TCP. These buffers are there on the TCP to ensure that this as a flow control mechanism. So the server can buffer 5000 bytes, whereas the client side can buffer 10,000 bytes. So usually, so it is far more prepared. It is far more free with resources. So resources are allocated based on whatever is available. The operating system allocates all these things. We are not bothered about such things. Here also the server is a bit stingy because it has to accept multiple connections. Both these are having multiple TCP connections probably. We are just shown one connection. So acknowledgement, if it is not containing any data bytes, it will take only one sequence number, consume only one sequence number. So that's it. The connection is established. Now the data transfer can take place. The data transfer takes place like this. So the connection establishment is over. You will send a segment with data bytes, and it should be acknowledged. It's an acknowledged for the previous one. So the next it indicates that the next frame, which is segment which the client expects from the server, should have the sequence number 15001. Now this has a specific sequence number. So again, it's acknowledgement for so two segments, say each of 1000 bytes each are sent. Now here we discussed about the push flag also. The push flag is a mechanism, so it's a control bit. If the client application layer process wants to, say, send some data, we already discussed about buffers at the client side and the server side, the TCP layers. So the TCP segments size, the number of data bytes in a segment, is determined by the TCP layer at both sides. Now sometimes it requires that, so when that buffer is when that quantity is reached, only then it will make a segment and send. Okay, so for instance, it specifies that 1000, when I receive 1000 bytes here, I'll make a segment and send. Here also, maybe the server side also has decided that when I get 500 bytes, I'll make a segment and send to the destination. So sometimes the client process might have to send some few bytes, maybe 100 bytes. So that is far short of the segments, the maximum segment size. So and this is something which has to be communicated to the server side process fast, maybe near real time. So what happens is that it will make a push request to the client transport layer. The server's client side process will make a push request to the client side transport layer, and it will pack just this 100 bytes and make a segment, and it will set the push flag and send to the server side. So that is happening through the IP layer. So these TCP segments are encapsulated in the IP, which is a connectionless protocol, and it will just travel through all these network routing. All those things happen in between, and it reaches here at the server side transport layer process, where it sees that this push flag is set. Means it will not wait for more data to come, say 900 more things, not 900, 400 more data bytes, because here the receive window size is 500. So it will just say that, oh, okay, see, 100 bytes have come, and this segment has a push flag set. So it will immediately pass it on to the server side process. Now that doesn't mean that the server side process may or may not mind it. It depends how you have made this application layer program. It depends on how it is implemented. But this will be transport layer does it. I'll just put it there. That's up to the application layer program to determine what to do. It is not bothered about that. Again, there is another flag which is called as an urgent flag. Urgent flag because some bytes might be requiring immediate attention of the application layer process. The client might think like that. The client application layer program might think like that. So it will just make an urgent request. And so maybe, for instance, some 40 bytes are to be sent to the server side process, and it has to be presented out of order. So what it does is that these bytes, this 40 bytes will be placed the initial portion of the segment, the first portion. It will be put in the first portion of the segment, and your urgent flag, we saw some flag which is called as urgent. urgent flag. So urgent flag, as well as there is something called as an urgent pointer. So urgent pointer will be indicating to the address of the last byte of this urgent byte, say 40 for instance. So indicates that the first 40 bytes are urgent bytes, and the urgent flag will also, control bit also will be set. So so this first 40 bytes will be just presented straight away. When it gets to the server side, it will be presented in the same sequence. It will be presented first, followed by the not so urgent things. Still, in this case also, it is up to the server side application program to do what is to be done. The TCP layer is not bothered about this. It's how your application program has decided. It's up to that. Again, TCP can ignore both these push functionality as well as urgent functionality. It need not respond to this client request for a push or a client request for a urgent transport. So it depends how you communicate, how your application layer communicates with your TCP and how it responds to that. Okay. So when you make a program, all these things matter. You just don't make an application layer program. Rather, there are some internal inter-process communication as well as inter-layer communication issues involved in this process. Now, this is data which is traveling in this direction from the server side process. There is a piggybacking also. The acknowledgement is there. Acknowledgement is 10,000. So it is acknowledging all the bytes up to 10,000. And it expects the next frame with the sequence number 10,000. Not frame, segment with the sequence number 10,001. Right. So this flows. Now the next step is the connection termination. Connection termination. There are several ways to there is a half open case also. We'll just first half close case. So that is say first the client process, any one of these, the server or the client can terminate the connection. That's up to them. So along with that, there are cases of timers which we are not discussing here right now. We'll discuss it in the Wireshark session. So TCP data capture section, we'll just see we'll briefly mention about timers. But here the matter to note here is that the client process decides that it no longer needs this TCP connection with the server side process. It is issuing an active close request and to its transport layer. So and this finish finish flag is set. Finish. So that is terminate the connection. FIN is finish. So I call it like that. Okay. So the finish flag is set and it's an acknowledgement for the previous segment from this direction. Okay. That's why it is acknowledgement for Y. The sequence number is something. This was for a previous data that came from this side. So what happens? This won't be. This may contain the last data also. This may contain the last data. From the client side process to the server side process. If it does not contain any data to be sent from the client process to the server process, the last units of data, last bytes, it will just consume only one sequence number. Now once that is happening, the server will respond. So server process will communicate this matter. Transport layer will inform this matter to the server application layer that it has received a request from the client side process telling that it wants to close this TCP connection. It won't just take a decision like that. So it will just inform the server side application layer program and it will just inform, right, okay, this close. It will be a passive close request will be issued and a finish the fin plus ACK segment is sent. So this might also contain some data which is to be sent in this direction. Okay, so this is acknowledgement for x plus 1, that is the next sequence number expected is x plus 1. That's what the indication. And this is also contain a sequence number. Okay, sequence number is there, y, right. Again, in response to this, the client, when it receives, the client will close this connection. Client transport layer will close the connection and it will send an acknowledgement to the server side process. So this ACK will not contain any data. This cannot carry any data. This is just an acknowledgement. And here it is shown arbitrarily, it is shown as x plus y, indicating that say this is the next sequence number, right? Acknowledgement for y plus 1, right? So there is okay, so this is acknowledged, that's it, and the connection is closed. You can even keep it half open, say one party will close the connection, the other one can just receive the data. That is half close situations are also there. You can read more about that. Okay, so that's we'll just make this discussion. Then flow control mechanisms, all those things, out of order delivery of packets, all those things can be those concepts can be picked up from the data link layer discussion, the sliding window protocol which we discussed. Straight away it's borrowed from there, and actually more than the data link layer, all these flow control mechanisms and error control mechanisms are involved are implemented in the TCP layer, the transport layer. Okay, transport layer, and specifically the transmission control protocol in the TCP IP suite is implementing it. Okay, so this is some cartoon, whatever you call it as a cartoon. So this is something which is two sets of services. I see this is Chinese, whatever is written here, I don't know what is written here, but the concept is clear. This is a conveyor belt. This is the client side and this is the server side now, or the source and the destination, you will call it like that. That will be better. So it can be peers as well. So this conveyor belt is sending these packets, and some packets drop off. Now this the server side or the destination side TCP layer is smart. So it does a lot of multitasking. So it is delivering whatever packets that come in from this source. It will be delivering it to the correct application layer program, right? It is correct delivering it to the correct application layer program. It will be a file transfer protocol, HTTP, simple mail transfer protocol, anything. Now in case it is losing some packets, what happens? This guy will just call up, it will inform, right? Today this packet is, this particular packet with this segment with the particular sequence number has been lost. It will wait also until it will make a out of order delivery also. It will put it in the correct order, and also, so for instance, the fifth packet is lost means it will just buffer all the packets 1 to 4 or 1 to 6 maybe, and then when the fifth packet comes in, it will just put it in order and just deliver it to the correct application layer program. UDP on the other hand is very it's not a lazy one, but rather it's the UDP functions more like a unreliable network. I don't want to give any example, but this has packets coming in, some packets are lost, there is more packet loss. It doesn't bother, whatever it gets, it delivers it. Your DHCP we discussed, port 67 and port 68 UDP, it runs on UDP. Then your routing information protocol, domain name system, DNS, all those rings they use UDP. Your streaming media, live streams, all those things they use UDP. There are proprietary UDP protocols as well. Say Google has something which is called as a QUIC. So you can search about Quick. It's all proprietary. YouTube runs on variants, proprietary protocols. It's not a pure UDP, rather there are improvements made on that. Okay, so then there are some situations. Say you could have something like that, a sync flooding attack. So we saw that this we'll send a it's like say there's a client process can send a sync and then just run away. It's like for instance, you have someone knocks at a door and just runs away, escapes, and that's what, just to fool people. Same way, in the same manner, the bot. So bot, we'll just come to what bot is. You are more aware than me what is a bot. So bots are malware programs. That's what they can come in various forms. They can infect your systems. Usually it comes via installing cracked software, phishing emails, all those things. Bots will infect your system. They'll reside there until they are activated remotely. There will be a very complex command hierarchy to activate the bots. They can do it in remotely. The whoever controls the bot, they can send send spoofed sync packets to some server. So, and this is a form called as DDoS, denial of service attack, distributed denial of service attacks. That's what. So distributed denial of service attacks could be there. So it could just send it to the target, and then the target will allocate resources. It will just respond to the sync acknowledge, and this guy vanishes off. Sometimes the IP is also not masked. They just send it like that. You could launch your IoT devices, all those things, even though they don't they are very cool targets for this. They have very primitive form of security, absolutely no security implemented because they are low on resources. So such things can be compromised to have attacks on networks. So IoT devices, we are using more and more sensors and all those things, means we are becoming more vulnerable. So resources could be attacked, targeted. So there could be firewalls, all those things, but there are measures to fool those things as well. So there is always a cat and mouse game. So anyway, this server will keep on allocating resources and looking for the person to respond, waiting for the acknowledgement from the client side. It doesn't happen. So what happens? It does not happen like one packet is sent. Several thousands of packets will be sent. So ultimately what happens, genuine requests will not be able, the server will not be able to entertain genuine requests. So it will be overwhelmed. It will be going low on resources. So that is a denial of service attack. So that can happen. It has happened several times. Right. Okay. Then the other one is, you will you can try out this Wireshark TCP capture session. So before that, we'll just switch over to UDP. We'll just discuss UDP and then come back to this Wireshark session. UDP doesn't require much discussion because we have already mentioned quite a few points. So I view UDP as something like a commando team. It just goes wherever it just makes it's very lightweight. The size, it's a very lightweight protocol. It can do the task fast. Whatever it wants to do, it's very agile. That's what the correct term I'll just say. But both have their merits and demerits. So we discuss about the UDP, user datagram protocol, UDP. So we are aware of this logical connection, all those things business at the transport layer. We discussed it in the introductory lecture on transport layer. So we are aware of this port numbers also. These are well-known port numbers in the 1023 range, and registered port numbers, and this private or ephemeral port numbers which we can use. We can use these port numbers. You'll be aware of this. Port 443 HTTPS and port 80 is HTTP. Okay, then port 67 DHCP and 68 server client side and server side processes, then SSH, FTP. So remember these things. You can find out this your ephemeral port numbers using this thing. I don't know the equivalent for Windows. I don't know. I am not aware of. You can make a search in Stack Overflow. If you get through it, just let me also know through the classroom. Can you see this slide? This new slides UDP. Yes. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. So coming back, say the socket address and all these things we discussed. So multiplexing, transport layer, the repeater. So UDP. UDP is a very lightweight protocol, very less overhead. It doesn't have all these error flow control, all these mechanisms like TCP, but it does have the minimum requirements. That is, have a source port number, destination port number. The source IP and destination IP will be coming from the source address, and destination address will be there in the which layer? IP layer. So network layer will provide that. UDP is just having the communication. It's also a transport layer protocol. Be aware of that. This is a transport layer protocol. So IP layer will be providing the IP address, source and the destination IP. UDP layer just needs to this path, the port address, source and the destination port address. So that forms a socket address. The total length can be 65535, but you have to minus the IP header also. So that means the lesser than this, few more bytes you have to reduce. 40 bytes for IP header. If you reduce that, you will be getting much lesser, 665. That will be there. Then again, these are called as user datagram. Some others, they since this is an unreliable transport protocol, it is even called as a unreliable datagram protocol. But I don't. It's not to be called like that. It's a very good power workhorse, especially in this COVID times. We had all these streaming conferences, all those things. UDP was UDP was doing a lot of jobs. Okay, so that's even without that, UDP does work in several protocols. The RIP, routing information protocol, DHCP, DNS, all those things, they use UDP. So it's a connectionless service, means it will take different paths. The UDP datagrams can take different paths. So there is no sequence numbers, nothing. That's why it's called as a lightweight protocol. They don't have any sequence numbers, nothing. So they just go and they just have this port address. Once it is getting to the destination side transport layer, it will be delivered to the transport layer, and you are losing a packet datagram. There is no way to recover that datagram. So it's some case applications which need very reliable near real time response. They can use UDP. Others can go for TCP. That's what. And the no error control, flow control, congestion control mechanisms. There is checksum. Checksum is also optional. So you can put, if it is not used, you will put all those checksum field as zeros. Checksum field can be put as zeros. It's an optional field, right? Again, this is IP header 20 bytes, 40 bytes very poor. So 65507 data bytes can be there in the UDP datagram. Okay, it should be fitting inside the IP datagram. That's what. So that's the thing. So this is a pseudo header because it's part of the IP layer. That's why, because the 32-bit IP address, the destination source addresses. So that's all mentioned. The port protocol is 17. Protocol field is 17. Don't ask me what will happen if the UDP is corrupted. The protocol corrupted, it will be discarded. That's what. There is no scope for retransmission. There is, if the checksum is used, it is there. Otherwise, you will just lose that frame. That's the thing. So, but it is robust enough. UDP is robust enough. So, okay. So UDP is a very workable protocol. It's very even now we are using UDP. This particular thing is using UDP. So all these Google Meet, all those things are made on some application which is called as a WebRTC. You read about WebRTC. So variants of WebRTC, all these conference things, meetings, like things, all this are made about WebRTC. It's more or less an open source thing. Google has made a lot of improvements on that and made it proprietary as well. It was an open source thing, WebRTC. Read about it. So, and again, these are some applications using UDP. You say DNS, DHCP, RIP, real-time medium streaming. Then QUIC is a protocol. So Google is investing a lot. The Google Research is one of Google Research, Microsoft Research, all those things. They are the leading. They have hired the best research people to do research on various domains. So Google Research seeks applications from researchers. Okay, it's open now, so that's there. If your research interest matches whatever is Google is interested, you can get a grant from that. But yeah, that's there. So again, I'll just share this thing. You can read it. Google QUIC. You can then the comparison. I suggest you yourself don't just memorize any of these things points. I just put it here just for recollection, but this is I want you to personally read the notes, read the text, and understand what this means. Connectionless UDP, connection oriented TCP. It's unreliable in the sense it's not that what we say, the name, unreliable, there is no retransmission, all those things are there. That is why it's called as an unreliable. It's a very lightweight protocol, right? No handshakes, nothing, no connection termination, connection establishment, only just pure data. That's what. So this figure again comes here. UDP is shown as I feel this guy looks like Nobita, right? You watch the cartoon. There's a cartoon there. It looks like it's not Chinese, I suppose. It looks like Japanese. The letters, no. I don't know. I don't recollect the source also for this. There is similar to sync flood attack. There is a UDP flood attack. You can send UDP spoof packets, and the target can be overwhelmed. So target responds to the address. It cannot. After it will time out after a while, and it will just send. It won't be able to reach the host which sent this thing. So after a while this creates, so the target might be itself will run out of resources. It won't be reachable for remaining. So this is also type of DDoS attack, distributed denial of service attack. As a matter of fact, you can just like you rent a car, you can rent malwares. You have various. That's a very sad aspect of today. There are a lot of criminal activities on sale in the dark net and the open net as well, and several open source tools are there, which are publicized as network testing tools. So, and these can be used to do all these things, and if you attempt it and get caught, you're in very serious trouble. That's what. Everywhere. The Cyber Law 2000 clearly is in India. That's also very serious on these computer-based attacks. So you could end up in jail. All those fines, all those things would come. So never ever try these things unless you have very specific authorization from the people concerned. Okay. Even what do you say? Trying to find out open ports on network, it's not it's not a very appreciated thing. Okay, so it's a first step to. It's like someone trying to rob your house. The first thing he or she will look is whether there are any open windows, open doors, like that, in the port scanning. such things are not really encouraged. There are tools for that, but there are several avenues for this. There are white hats and black hats. So stay clear of all these things unless you have in a professional group doing it with full authorization from the concerned people. Don't attempt these things even as a joke. You might be in serious trouble. It will be very difficult to get out of this. Okay, so then we saw these commands. We saw all these commands. So you can netstat A, netstat AU, and extract LU, listening active TCP ports. So that's regarding the UDP. That's regarding UDP. So we'll just